Hello everyone, happy Tuesday, welcome to Much Ado About Gaming. My name is Jessa Blackthorne, thank you so much for tuning in today. We have a fantastic show for you today. We're going to be showing off an awesome game, but as always, before we get started, just a couple of reminders. This is a show about board games. We talk about WizKids Board Game releases, but that also means that I'm not able to answer questions about our other product lines. So if you have questions about HeroClix, Dice Masters, Star Trek, Attack Wing, RPG, anything like that, I'm not able to answer those questions for you, but what you can do is go to WizKids social media. We are WizKids Games on Twitter and Instagram and WizKids on Facebook, and that's going to be one of the best places to get that information. You can also go to WizKids.com, HeroClix.com, etc., etc. Those are also great places to get the latest updates about those other product lines. But the show is live, so if you do have questions about board games, what you can do is type your question into the chat. I've got one eye on the chat right now, so if you have a question, type question in all caps in the chat so I see it, and I will do my best to answer your question during the show. If for whatever reason I cannot answer your question during the show, sometimes it's something I have to check or confirm, what I will do generally is answer those questions on my Twitter account. So you can follow me on Twitter at @the_Blackthorne. I'm putting right now in the chat a link to my social media account so you can follow me on Twitter, and that'll be where I'll answer any questions that I can't answer immediately during the show. I always forget if there's a third thing, but I don't think there is. So with that, thank you so much for tuning in, and we are going to dive right into today's show. I'm really excited about this, so let's get going. So today we are talking about Star Trek Missions, a Fantasy Realms game. I am so excited for this game. Now, if you have watched this show for any length of time, if you've seen a bunch of episodes of the show, you know that I hold Fantasy Realms really close to my heart. Fantasy Realms was the first WizKids board game that I ever purchased, so it's one that kind of is very meaningful to me. I love it. Alright, hang on one second. We have a question from Fry Minis. It says, would you rather be a D&D commoner magically brought into the Star Trek universe or a Star Trek commoner brought into a D&D world? I feel like I would probably want to be the Star Trek commoner brought into a D&D world because I am terrified of heights, and the idea of being in space kind of, I think, scares me a little bit, so I think that, D&D is, you're on the ground, so that would probably be what I do. But hey, if you're watching the show, why don't you answer that question too? What would you rather be? Star Trek Missions, Fantasy Realms is really important to me. I love it so much. It's such a fun game, and so it's not just a Fantasy Realms version, or a Star Trek version of Fantasy Realms. There's actually a new element that Bruce Glasgow added into the game to make this unique to Star Trek, and it's really, really cool. So we're going to talk about that. Just, of course, a little bit about the game before we dive into the actual unboxing part. In Star Trek Missions, you'll discover all the potential the galaxy has to offer, uniting familiar characters, locations, and gear in strange and thrilling new configurations. You can assemble a crew with anyone from Commander William Riker to Daimon Bach, grab a bat'leth, and take on challenges like organizing a diplomatic conference or getting trapped in the holodeck. With thousands of possibilities, you'll never play the same hand twice. So, what Fantasy Realms / Star Trek Missions is mechanically at its core, it's a combo building game. So you and the other players are trying to build the best hand of cards, and in the hand of cards, the cards that you'll have actually will affect one another. So certain cards will fall under certain categories, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we look at the cards. But those categories might be affected by the other cards in your hand, so it might say, you score 5 extra points if you have 2 of this type of card in your hand, or 4 points for every other card that's of this category. Things like that. So it's really cool. It's really a fun kind of... It's a different way of doing you know, deck building. It's hand building instead of deck building. So it feels like it's on a smaller scale, and it can be almost less overwhelming to do that on that smaller scale, which is really fun. But I really love it. I like that it's, you know, you still have to really be thinking and really be on top of everything, but it's definitely something that requires more agility in gameplay than a traditional deck builder, and that's kind of what these games are. So I have right here, let me just pull this up for all of you. I have the game right here on my beautiful desk. So we are going to go ahead and unbox this. So this is what the box looks like. As you can see, some iconic Star Trek faces across the top. I really like the color scheme on the cover. I think it's really fun. It really, you know, has that Star Trek feel to it. I also just, I like these kind of like color, I don't know what to call it. I like the way they used color on this packaging. So there's a lot of use of this kind of watercolor effect, which is the word I was looking for, which is, I think, really, I like the feel of it. You know, a lot of space games just go for a space aesthetic, and this one, they really, you know, tried to do something a little bit different with it, which I appreciate very much. So this is the back of the box. As you can see, all of the pertinent info that is also right above my head, right up here. And then some of the cards, and just a description of the game. So we're going to go ahead and open it. Alright, so I have never opened this copy before, so you can see I literally took off the plastic on it like 10 minutes before the show. So when you open it, the rulebook is right here on top. And the rulebook, it's not that big. There's not a lot of complexity to the rules. Where the game gets complex is in the interactions between individual cards. So the game does have a great section where it defines a lot of the terminology used in the game for you. And that, I think, is going to be really helpful to understand how things interact. It also has some great examples of how the scoring works, so you can understand and follow that. And then an FAQ on the back. And of course, as always, if there are a lot of questions about certain interactions, we may post an additional FAQ in the future to help you keep track. And also, right there on the back of the rulebook, right here, you can see I actually proofread this rulebook. So I'm really happy about that, really proud of that. Fry Minis says, does WizKids make Star Trek minis? I don't think we make like just single minis as Star Trek minis. What we do make is we've made Star Trek HeroClix sets with minis from Star Trek, and of course we make the Attack Wing figures, which also have the ships from Star Trek. So if you're looking for kind of miniatures in that regard, we have made those in the past. But this is a show about board games, so we're going to continue to focus on the board games. So the next thing that you'll find in this box is we have this is a scoring sheet. I'm trying to find, I always pull up for this show a list of the components so I can make sure I give everything the correct name, because sometimes things have kind of specific names. There it is. It's on the cover. I'm just a person. So we have the score pad right here, so this will help you score your games, and it's got a lot of pages, so it'll last you a while. The silica packet is, of course, not a component, so I would not find a way to play with this, and don't eat it. You know, it says it right on the pack. Don't. So now we have two types of cards in Star Trek missions. We have these Galaxy cards, which are the cards that you're familiar with from Fantasy Realms. They are the cards that you use to build your hand. And then they have this new type of card that's called mission cards. So we're going to start with the Galaxy cards and talk about them, and then we'll go into a little more detail about the mission cards. Getting this plastic off is always a challenge. I keep clippers nearby for this exact reason. I apologize, my nose is a little itchy today. I think it's allergies. Alright, here we go. So, first let's talk about the backs of these cards, because I love them. I think they're so cool. So these are the backs of these are the galaxy cards, and again, they really played with this kind of spacey watercolor aesthetic, which I very much appreciate. So this is what one of the galaxy cards looks like. So I'm actually going to pull up Riker because he's my favorite Star Trek character. So we'll look at the card and I'll explain what each little piece of the text does. So this is the Commander William Riker card. And each card, this is what a standard galaxy card looks like. Each galaxy card contains 5 different pieces of information. So the first piece of information is right on the side here. You can see it says personnel. And that is the card's type. So the type can include things like character types like captain, personnel, civilians, could be locations, systems located on the Enterprise, equipment that characters may carry with them, as well as artifacts that characters might seek. So there's a lot of different types that could be present on a card, but that's right on the side is where you'd find it. Next, moving down, there's a specialty. So some types, not all of them, might have one or more specialties. It could be combat, command, science, medical, security, archaeologist, ambassador, engineer, counselor, weapon, and cosmic. So it could be any one of those different specialties. And that's the very first thing you'll see. So you can see Riker's specialty is command. Next, we have the life form type. So it's not called type in the rulebook, it's called life form. But you can think of it as the type of life form that they are. So in this case, Riker is human. As you can see, it's the second one down. There could also be Vulcans, Klingons, Romulans, Ferengi, Betazoids, androids, or holograms. There are a ton of different life forms in the Star Trek universe, and we made sure to account for that on these cards. And then the next thing that you have is right here, and that's the affiliation. So that's going to be, of course, a big deal in the Star Trek universe. So you could have Federation, which is what Riker is, Klingon Empire, Ferengi Alliance, Romulan Star Empire, and Hostile. There are also 7 cards in the game that don't have an affiliation, but there are also ones that are affected by their life form. So, like, for example, Ferengi and Romulans are always affiliated with their life form, but others, like maybe the Klingons, might be affiliated with either the Federation or the Klingon Empire. So that's something to keep in mind. And then the next part, the last part, is the bonus text. So this specifies what other cards provide it with points, which is how you are going to use that information to adequately and effectively build your hand. So in this case, it says that your hand gets 7 points for each of Transporter, Counselor Deanna Troi, and Away Team that are in your hand with Riker. So Riker will give you those points. And then, of course, you have the character's name and then the art as well. Those don't have any mechanical effects. The name does sometimes because, like, for example, here we have that, so you get 7 points for each card that's Counselor Deanna Troi. So the name can be important in that case. The art doesn't have any effects except looking super, super cool. Oh. Question from Fry Minis. Does the length of the color line on the top of the categories imply strength or anything, like the blue line above human is shorter than the yellow line above Federation? I don't believe it does. I think the length of the line is just because of the length of the word. So Federation is a longer word than human, so the line is longer. But I will, as we're going, I'll try and figure that out, because I don't know it for 100% sure. This is, like I said, we just got our copies of this, so I haven't had a chance to actually play it yet. But I don't remember that being a thing from when I proofed the rulebook, so I don't think it's a thing. I think it's just the length of the word. To show you another type of galaxy card, so this is a computer, so it's a system on the Enterprise. So as you can see here, the specialty is science. It's not a life form, so it doesn't have a life form. It's a system, as you can see right here. And then you have affiliation, and it's Federation because it's on the Enterprise. And then the computer gives you 6 for each cosmic specialty. So those are different things. You can see that in this case, instead of telling you that it's specialty in text, it shows you the icon for specialty. So this is both color coded, and each little icon up in this corner will have different art inside it. So the specialty one looks like this. So I'm gonna get a little closer. Actually, let's do this with Riker because he has all three. So as you can see, the affiliation has a little flag. The life form is kind of like a DNA kind of strand. And then the specialty is more like a microbe of some sort. So that will be how you can tell the difference. So we did make it accessible for colorblind players as well, is the important thing to note here. We tried to make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible to be able to read and understand the cards. So there are in total 50 of these galaxy cards in the deck, and they all interact in different ways. So like, for example, Counselor Deanna Troi grants you 5 points for each different life form. She also has 2 types of life forms in this case, so anything that applies to both Betazoid or human will apply to Deanna Troi. So that's something to keep in mind. So there's a lot of different ways these interact, and a lot of fun ways that you can kind of find to combine them. There's no one ideal way, I think. I mean, I'm sure you could probably, if you sat around for long enough, you could find a way to optimize, but that's not as fun, and you have, you know, so many different options, you know. There's just a lot of great characters, you know, you have Lieutenant Worf. You have, you know, locations like quarters. You have shields, things like the sick bay. Lots of fun stuff. So those are your galaxy cards. So these are going to be the things that you build your hand with. So when you play the game, what you do is you have, when you set up the game, each player is going to get 5 of these galaxy cards and 2 of the mission cards that we'll talk about in 1 second. And then what you do is you place the galaxy cards, the remaining of the deck of the galaxy cards face down. And then there's also going to be space in the middle for the discard area. So let's talk about the mission cards, and then I'll talk about how a typical round goes. But basically, there's a lot of different ways that you can get these different galaxy cards. So let me just open up the plastic for the mission cards. Oh, just 1 second, having a little trouble with the plastic here. Another nice thing about a game like this is because it's mainly cards, you can kind of put it in a deck box, and that makes it for easy transportation. The game box is really small, but I know sometimes like it's nice to be able to just toss a game in your purse. And so this game, it has few enough components. You could, you know, bring the score pad with you, or you could just score on a piece of paper later. So there's a lot of different options. We are also looking at, we have not finalized anything yet, but we are looking at creating a scoring app similar to the scoring app for Fantasy Realms for this game as well. So now let's talk about the mission cards. So the mission cards work similarly to the galaxy cards, but they don't have an affiliation, they don't have a life form, they don't have a type, and they don't have a specialty. So they have only text. So what the mission cards effectively are is goals that you want to achieve. So they give you points for achieving certain goals in your hand. So this one, for example, away team, says you get 5 points for each personnel within with a different specialty, and for each transporter, tricorder, and hand phaser. So all the different mission cards are like that. They give you points basically for completing these objectives. You don't, if your hand changes after you complete the objective, you do not keep the points. So it's basically, you get these points at the end of the game when you're scoring. But there are ways that you can get discard mission cards and draw new mission cards to try and find a mission card that is going to mesh with the hand that you are building. So this one, Computer Virus, says 7 points for each system and each hologram life form. So just these are, you know, different ways that you can score points and grow the amount of points that your hand scores. And so it's really important to find that synergy between the mission cards that you have and the galaxy cards in your hand. You start with 2 mission cards, and you're only ever going to have 2 mission cards. You may only have 1 or 2 mission cards. Sorry, I worded that very poorly. You cannot have 0 mission cards, and you can't have more than 2. So you always need to have at least 1. So now, how does a game of Star Trek missions work, you ask? So let's talk about that. So when beginning of the game, I'm going to slide this all over. Beginning of the game, everyone is going to get 5 of these galaxy cards. That's 5. So every player gets 5 of these galaxy cards. Sorry, I'm bad at counting and talking at the same time. I'm not a math person. They also get... One second. Pick this up. They also get 2 mission cards. So, and this is what the backs of the mission cards look like. So again, lots of color, lots of fun. So when that happens, after that's all set up, everyone's going to look at their hand and also look at their mission cards. Now, on a player's turn, they have a couple of different options. So you put the decks on the table face down. And then there's also, you need to leave space in the middle. I'm obviously working with a very small space right now. Of course, if you had a normal sized table, it would be a lot easier to do a full setup. But you would leave space in the middle of the table for the discard area. So basically what happens on your turn is you can do a couple of different things. You can either discard a card, you can take a card from the discard area. So as the game progresses, you're going to be adding more and more cards to the discard area. So on your turn, you can take a card from the discard area and replace it with a card in your hand. So you would discard a card in your hand and pick up a card from the discard area in its place. Another thing that you can do is you can draw the top card from the Galaxy deck and then discard any card to the discard area. So you're always going to be discarding a card from your hand, no matter what, and then adding to the discard area, and other players can pick up from the discard area. So you need to be really careful about what you're discarding as you're playing, because you don't want to put something into the discard area. GM Workshop, this game does not have a discard pile, so the discard area is where you always discard to, and other players can pick up a card of their choice from that area on their turn. So all of the discarded cards are always visible at all times. So they'll be face up, they'll be spread out. You can also draw 2 cards from the top of the mission deck and then discard any 2 cards to the discard area. So you can kind of change your mission cards out that way, or you can change the cards in your hand to try to improve your hand. And you can do that either by grabbing visible cards from the discard area or by grabbing cards from the top of the Galaxy deck and hoping that the card that you get is going to help your hand. So there are different game terms as well that will affect your hand. So, for example, cards may receive bonuses with other certain types of cards. So that means that you only get the bonus if both cards are in your hand at the same time. And you only get the bonus once. So it's not like you get the bonus for each card. But there is a game term called for each that allows you to receive a bonus for each of a particular type of card that may that you hold of a variety name. So if you have more than one Commander Bruce Maddox, or Commander Bruce Maddox actually has this effect, I should say. Hold on. Let me find Commander Bruce Maddox and we will look at the card together and I will explain this. It's easier to explain with the visual. He must be on the table somewhere. Always in the last place you look, right? So, Commander Bruce Maddox says 5 points for each android and hologram life form. So that means that every android hologram life form you have, so anyone that has life form in this little blue area, you will gain 5 points as long as you have Commander Bruce Maddox in your hand at the end of the game. There's also a term called blanking. Now, what blanking does is it no longer, if a card has been blanked by another card, it no longer receives any points. So it won't give points to other cards or affect your hands in any way. It basically functions as if there's no text on it. It's just a blank card. The only function it does have is counting as one of the 7 cards in your hand. There is another type of blanking called blanked unless with, and what that does is it means that the card is blanked unless it has one of the other named cards in your hand. So you have to be careful about cards that say blanking. So like, for example, James Moriarty says blanked unless with holodeck 1, holodeck 2, or computer. He also has another effect that says 8 for each science and engineer specialty. So if you have this card in your hand and you want to score that, you want to make sure that you have at least one of those 3 cards in your hand at the end of the game. Otherwise, you lose those points. So as a reminder, I can't answer questions about any of our other product lines on the show. If you have questions about our other product lines, please feel free to contact us on social media. That's going to be the best place to get that information. Cards can also give multiple bonuses to more than one other card in the same hand, but a card can't receive bonuses more than once from a single card. So that's something really important to remember. For example, a card might gain a bonus for each personnel with a different specialty. But despite, if a card has, say, 4 different specialties, like we saw, it's not a specialty, but we saw in Deanna Troy, she had 2 different life forms. The bonus would only still be given for that card one time. It's just to help spread the number of cards that you have that are getting affected, and to prevent people from using those cards more than anything else. Now, the game ends on one of 2 conditions. Either when you have 8 Galaxy cards in your hand, there are 8 Galaxy cards in the discard area in the center, or there are 12 mission cards in the discard area. So, when one of those 2 conditions are met, the game ends. At the end of the game, you are going to score your hands, so you would score your hand based on the other cards in your hand. As someone who's done this with Fantasy Realms a lot, go slowly. I highly recommend taking your time with scoring, because it's really easy to miss a really good scoring opportunity that could put you over by just rushing through it. Or conversely, you could miss that one of your cards is being blanked, or that you don't actually have the scoring opportunity you thought you had. So really, I recommend taking your time. And like I said, we're hoping to someday soon have a scoring app available for this like we do for Fantasy Realms, but we haven't produced anything yet. But keep an eye on our social media if we announce that. But in the meantime, just take your time with the scoring. I'm someone who struggles with numbers. I know it can be a little bit challenging, but it will be okay, I promise. You've got this. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else important. There are specific notes about specific card interactions in the rulebook that you can read. So if you're concerned about the way certain cards interact, check there first. Of course, you can always contact us if you have questions that are not answered in the rulebook. We are really proud of this game and really excited for it to come out. This one will be coming out next month in March. We are very excited about it. Of course, release dates are always subject to change. There is a global shipping and logistics crisis that the entire industry is experiencing right now. So if, the release date does change, please be understanding about it. We are trying our best to get this game to you. It is fabulous, and we expect it to arrive very soon. But we are very happy to have this coming. So this game is $19.99. It's for ages 14 and up, and it plays in 20 minutes, so it's a nice quick game too. And it plays 2 to 6 players, so it's something that you can play at home, maybe with your family, your significant other, or you can play it, with friends on game night, play it at the coffee shop, anywhere really. It's just a fabulous game. But with that, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you fall in love with Star Trek missions the way I have. It is such a great way to take the Fantasy Realm system, add something a little bit new and different to it with those mission cards, and just make it totally fun. If you have any questions, of course, please don't hesitate to contact WizKids or myself on social media. We'll be happy to answer them. Tomorrow, of course, is another episode of Model Behavior, and what we'll be doing tomorrow on Model Behavior is... we will be unboxing the Storm King's Thunder box sets 1, 2, and 3 from D&D Icons of the Realms. These sets are really cool, and I'm really excited to show them off, so be sure to tune in tomorrow at noon on WizKids' social media accounts, on Twitch, on YouTube, on Facebook, to check that unboxing out. The figures in that are so cool, and I'm so excited to show them off. But without any further ado, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you stay safe. I hope you stay healthy. I love you. WizKids loves you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye!